This is a Sports Catastrophe production.
Hey there, hi there, ho there, it's Jeff Cutastrophe and welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe on this day. And on this day, February 3rd in 2013, the Baltimore Ravens and the San Francisco 49ers would go toe-to-toe in Super Bowl 47. It was a good Super Bowl. It had the added pressure for both franchises, as both Harbaugh brothers, Jim and John Harbaugh, were coaches of the Niners and Ravens respectively. So it would be the first time brothers would be facing each other as head coaches of the Super Bowl. And also, this was the first time in history that two teams with undefeated records would meet at the Super Bowl, as in undefeated Super Bowl records. The Ravens won their only appearance prior to 2013 in 2001 against the Giants. And the Niners were 5-0 in Super Bowls, something the Pats couldn't even do. But the fact of the matter was that this would be huge and all that. The Ravens were making their second appearance. Ray Lewis was about to retire. He was on the only member of the Ravens team still from the 2001 championship against the Giants. And it was also Randy Moss's last game. He played for the Niners, but yeah, it was Moss's last game as well. New Orleans got the Super Bowl. It would be the first time in 11 years that the city of New Orleans would host the Super Bowl, and the 10th overall, which would tie Miami for most by an individual city at that time, of course. So it was a huge one. Over 164 million people tuned into at least 6 minutes of the game, and the average attendance was 108 million people watching it. The halftime show, not much to talk about, but Beyonce did a good halftime show, and it actually had Michelle Williams and Kelly Rowland, who were members of Destiny's Child with Beyonce, reunite with her. So yeah, it was amazing what could happen and all that. So anyhow, New Orleans, Glendale, and Miami were all playing for the Super Bowl, but New Orleans got it and all that. So this would be a big moment and all that. They called it the Heart Bowl because of the Harbaugh brother. Heart Bowl. So anyway, the Ravens were 12-4 and missed on a field goal by Billy Cundiff. That was the previous year. But this year they were worse. They only won 10 games this year. They did improve a little bit. And things are huge. Joe Flacco, the man from the University of Delaware with over 3,800 yards and 22 touchdowns, was the quarterback, was the pivot, if you will. He had Anquan Bolden and Torrey Smith at wide receiver, Dennis Pitta at tight end, Mary Rice running back before his personal problems. Matt Burke was a veteran center, part of the offensive line. Jacoby Jones had 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns in that year. Justin Tucker, who replaced Cundiff as the kicker, ranked 7th in field goal percentage, which wasn't bad. The legend of Justin Tucker started. Baltimore's defensive line was anchored by Haloti Nakata at defensive end. Linebackers were Jamel McClain, Terrell Suggs, and Ray Lewis. And of course, Ray Lewis did a job. Ed Reed was still around. And the Ravens had extra motivation as just before the season started, Art Modell, the owner that got him the franchise from Cleveland, passed away. Regardless of that, the Niners had a decade of ineptitude. They were looking good. They were good teams in the 80s and 90s, but after 2002, they were slumping and all that. Jim Harbaugh was hired as head coach after the 2010 season and turned everything around. Alex Smith was the main quarterback for San Fran. I mean, after all, they did pick him first overall one year. But unfortunately, because of a concussion, he missed time, and Colin Kaepernick, the second-year backup, filled in. And then there was a controversy. Who would you go with, Alex Smith or Kaepernick? After Smith was fully recovered, Harbaugh chose Kaepernick. And Kaepernick, after being named the starter, once Smith came back, picked up 3 wins and 2 losses. So not that big of a deal. San Fran won 11, lost 4, tied 1, which is unusual. Michael Crabtree was a great wide receiver as usual. Vernon Davis at tight end. And then the Niners took Mario Manningham and Randy Moss. Manningham had already been a Super Bowl champ the previous year with the Giants, so it was huge how they took him away. Moss had missed a year of retirement, but the Niners picked him up. Frank Gore was running great. As usual, Joel Staley and Mike Iupati, great offensive lineman. David Akers was not really much of a kicker, but he did have a 63-yard field goal that tied the NFL record at the moment. Ted Ginn Jr. was a good running back kicks and all that. Justin Smith, Pro Bowl defensive end, did well. They had a good linebacker core of Aldon Smith, Navarro, Bowman, Patrick Willis, and Ahmed Brooks. And Dante Whitner in the backfield, defensive backfield. The Ravens were the number 4 seed in the AFC. Well, they were the AFC North champions. So they would host the Colts in the wild card round. And the Ravens beat the Colts 24-9, which would be Ray Lewis's final home game. In the divisional round, Baltimore would have to head to Denver, and everyone agreed that Peyton Manning and the Broncos' high-power offense was going to rule the day, win the game, and then practically host the AFC title game. But somehow, in some way, Joe Flacco, with a kind of a Hail Mary pass to Jacoby Jones, which ended up being a 70-yard play with less than a minute left in the game, tied the game, and they went to double overtime when Justin Tucker kicked the winning field goal. And then the Ravens took on the Pats in the AFC title game, and I was convinced that the Pats were going to do to the Ravens what they did the previous year and win. Well, not so much. 28-13, Ravens won. Really ticking me off, of course. And it's the only time that Brady's lost the AFC title game at home. I mean, dude. Anyway, the Niners won their divisional round game, and then they would have to face the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta in the NFC title game. They were down 17-0, and it looked like game set match for Atlanta. But the Niners were up to the challenge and won 28-24, surviving Atlanta and going to the Super Bowl. What's ironic is that that's not the worst postseason lead Atlanta has blown in a game. 28-3, anyone? Anyway, so this was the first Super Bowl in 10 years to not have the Pats, Colts, or Steelers as the AFC representatives. That's amazing. And the only Super Bowl between 2003 and 2019 to not have Brady, Roethlisberger, or Manning at quarterback for the AFC. This was just unbelievable. Anyway, it seemed like the NFC would have a different member go to the Super Bowl every year, if you will. So, anyway, the Niners wanted to win the Super Bowl and join the Giants as champions in the metropolitan area. The Giants were the World Series champs. The last time a city won the World Series and Super Bowl in the same season was Boston, when they won the 04 World Series, and then the Pats won the 05 Super Bowl. San Fran would wear their red, Baltimore would wear their white. It just made sure all that. Of course, you know, the Harbaugh brothers, the big hype and all of that. Anyway, it just happened that way. Alicia Keys would sing the national anthem. Jennifer Hudson sang America the Beautiful. You know, it was a great halftime show for Beyonce. Well, regardless of that, the Super Bowl started. The opening drive went to the Niners, but unfortunately they had a 20-yard reception called back by an illegal formation penalty. They had to punt. Baltimore drove the ball 51 yards on their subsequent drive. Joe Flacco touchdown to Anquan Bolden, former Cardinal, and it was 7-0. San Fran did kick a field goal by David Akers to make it 7-3 at the end of the first quarter. Second quarter, there was a face mask penalty on Donnie Whitner that got the ball to the 1 yard line, and Dennis Pitta caught the ball for the touchdown. They make it 14-3. After a pick by Ed Reed, the Ravens had a chance to do something with a fake field goal, failed. But they weren't deterred. Jacoby Jones made a big 56-yard touchdown reception. He made the catch down the field and fell, but since no Niner touched him, he technically could jump back up on his feet, and he did, and he scored the touchdown. San Fran did kick a field goal in the final play of the half to make it 21-6, so it looked dismal for the Niners. And then the Niners had kickoff to the Ravens, and Jacoby Jones was pinned 8 yards back in his end zone and ran it all the way from there to the other end zone, 108 yards, officially touchdown, the longest play in Super Bowl history. And it broke the record for longest kick return in a playoff game with 104 yards, as Trenton Holiday of the Broncos did so against the Ravens, ironically that same year. Anyway, Baltimore kicked the extra point. It was 28-6. But somehow, someway, into the next drive, there was a problem. The clock had stopped. And everyone was like, what's going on? Well, then they showed half the Mercedes-Benz Superdome in darkness and half in light. It was like, oh my God, what just happened? There was a massive power outage. Equipment failure at the stadium happened. A lot of people blamed Beyonce's halftime show and all that for burning the candle at both ends, if you will. But anyway, after both teams punted the ball at least once, the Niners drove 80 yards. And Kaepernick threw a touchdown to Michael Crabtree for a touchdown. The Ravens would punt. And then Frank Gore would run a touchdown. Score made it 28-20. David Akers did miss a 39-yard field goal. Unfortunately for Ravens fans, and fortunately for Niners fans, that there was a running into the kicker penalty. So 5 yards and Akers made good. It was 28-23. It looked like the Niners were getting momentum. Regardless, the Ravens did kick a 19-yard field goal by Tucker, making it 31-23. And then the Niners got a touchdown. A few key plays by Moss and Gore. And Kaepernick ran a 15-yard touchdown run. Strangely enough, it's the longest touchdown run by a quarterback in Super Bowl history, 15 yards. So he does so. They went for 2. Obviously, you're down by 2. And they failed. So they needed something. Tucker kicked the field goal to make it 34-29 with 4:19 left. And then the Niners would have a chance to score a touchdown. They got to the 5-yard line. But unfortunately, they could not convert their 4 chances. And the Niners would turn the ball over with 146. The Ravens did have the punt, but Sam Cook scrambled and got an intentional safety, leaving 4 seconds left, and the Niners were basically screwed over. Final score, 34-31, as the Ravens were the Super Bowl champs after all. So yeah, there was a 34-minute power outage in the third quarter. Emergency generators did back up with backup lighting and all of that. So anyway, anyways, yeah, there is a lot of things happening. There was a chance. I think. So yeah, there was energy problems and all of that. Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, that's what happened. But the Ravens won the game 34-31. It was a close game. The teams combined for a Super Bowl record 312 yards of kickoff return yardage. So anyway, the Niners became the second team in history to score 30 points but not win the Super Bowl. The Cowboys were the first team to do so at Super Bowl 13, losing 34-31, if I remember right, against the Steelers in that famous Super Bowl 13. The Patriots would do so as well in Super Bowl 52 after losing to the Eagles. And then the Eagles scored 30 plus points last year's Super Bowl but lost to the Chiefs. Anquan Bolden was the leading receiver, 106 yards and a touchdown from the Ravens. Ed Reed's interception in the Super Bowl got him 9 postseason picks, which tied him for the NFL record. And Ray Lewis had 7 tackles in his final game of his 17-year career. And Jacoby Jones became the first player to score a receiving touchdown and return touchdown in the same Super Bowl. Kaepernick was 16 for 28, 302 yards and a touchdown. And ran in for a touchdown too. His 62 rushing yards, second highest in Super Bowl history, behind only Steve McNair in Super Bowl 34. Frank Gore did run for 110 yards and a touchdown. Michael Crabtree picked up 109 yards and a touchdown. And yeah, that was huge and all that. So everything happened for a reason. Happens for a reason. The Ravens have not been back to a Super Bowl since 2013. They've been close on several occasions, including this year, 2024, but losing the AFC title game at home to Kansas City. The Niners are came back to the Super Bowl in 2020 against the Chiefs. Had the lead in the fourth quarter, but the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes stole it away from them. The Niners will have a chance to win their 6th Super Bowl and tie Pittsburgh and New England for most by a franchise come next week against the Ravens. Will they do it? I don't know. But yeah, the Super Bowl was huge because of Jacoby Jones' touchdown to start the second half, the big power outage, Ray Lewis winning the game, final game, and Art Modell, the ghost of Art Modell helping them win. Lots of people hate on Modell, especially in Cleveland. So that's just one reason. Anyhow, I'm Jeff Diamond.